Well, hello and welcome to the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy, being broadcast from the BioSkills of Northeast studio in Fall River, Mass. Today we'll be discussing how your local BayCoast Bank can help you with a variety of different programs. We welcome guests Helena Moronta, First VP Community Development, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and Evelyn Ranone, First VP Community Outreach Financial Literacy Officer. And before we begin our conversation, I'd like to thank our sponsors, BayCoast Bank. BayCoast Bank is just right for all of your financial needs. Visit baycoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. And Duncan Hearing Healthcare you can trust, with sites in Fall River, Dartmouth, Falmouth, and Centerville. For more information, visit their website, duncanhearing.com. As always, you can support the 27 Degree with Chris and Nancy by subscribing to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, and by following us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please remember to leave a review, and of course, 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated. So we'll start right away and get into this. And go ahead, Nancy. Why don't you ask the first question?
Well, I want to know a little bit about these ladies.
All right.
So, Helena, why don't you start?
Sure. Again, Helena Moronta, the First Vice President, Community Development, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer for BayCoast Bank. I've been there just 4 years now. Had my anniversary this September. And in my role as a DEI officer, it's about ensuring that policies and procedures are equitable and inclusive, that employees have an opportunity to be seen, be heard, having platform to share those ideas and different perspectives, either through our DEI committee, where we have various departments that are part of it, also including board members and corporators and the CEO. We also have employee resource groups, and that certainly gives our employees an opportunity to have a platform to just be engaged and, again, share those different perspectives and ideas.
That's great because it's like active listening. So you can really sit there and make those improvements that are so necessary to make you one of the best.
That's great. And how about yourself?
I'm Evelyn Ranone, as you said, and I've been with BayCoast Bank for 7 years. I do a lot of focus on financial literacy, which is anything that has to do with any finances that someone might need, from kindergarten all the way through adulthood, the elderly, seniors. And so I do a lot of outreach within the community to make sure that we provide this service to all of those in need.
That's great.
Nice.
Excellent.
Now, anyone who's not that familiar with BayCoast, can you tell us a little bit about the bank and the history and, just give us some little nuggets about them?
Sure. We've been around since 1851. So quite some time.
I guess.
Yes. And all throughout South Coast, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, making more of a footprint. We currently have, I want to say, just about 25 branches.
Nice.
So big, but small enough to still be community focused.
Right, that's great. That's an important piece. Yeah. So how far out does BayCoast reach as far as communities in New England? It's all in New England, I'm assuming.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, wherever the need is, there obviously we have certain areas where we have a physical branch location.
Right.
But if there's a need that is a little bit further out there, it won't prevent Evelyn or I or any of our other colleagues to go out if there's a need. As a community developer as well, we are always seeking opportunities and certainly taking advantage where we can either share our expertise, resources, or financial literacy as well.
We have partners too that do their work, their offices even are all around Massachusetts. So there's priority funding, and there's also BayCoast Mortgage, BayCoast Insurance. So we cover so many areas that we can take care of the South Coast of Massachusetts, or as far as I know of Springfield, but the mortgage company goes all the way down into Florida as well.
Okay. I've heard that. And when we've had BayCoast on in the past, one of the points that was made was that there's really an interest in improving the financial health of the community. As a community bank, that's something that you strive for, which I think is unique as a mission.
Yeah, and I just want to tell our listeners, too, that we've done a few podcasts now with BayCoast. So if you're thinking about anything financial or investment wise, we've done podcasts with Patrick Long on what was his
That was insurance, yeah.
Yes. Carol Simmons, she had done trusts. We had Mike Drevera on, who did the credit scores and the mortgages. So please go through our podcast and just bring up that one that really resonates with you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And we'll move on. But the other thing I just want to point out about BayCoast is that they're a very charitable organization. You know, they support our podcast, which is all about education, and there's a lot in the community that the bank does that's quite charitable, which is unique also, I think, for a bank in general. So
that was one of our first podcasts with BayCoast, just to kind of do that introduction with them and the community services that they do. Right. So I'm glad that you brought that up, very much so. So, Helena, can you tell us a little bit about your job and like really what you focus on?
So I did elaborate a little bit earlier about the DEI role, but the community development role really speaks to me in so many different ways. It affords me the opportunity to be customer facing and just community facing. That's what I believe certainly sets BayCoast aside from the rest, as we really immerse ourselves in our communities. We get to know who our neighbors are, understanding their needs, and then bringing that information back to various departments and our subsidiaries, just to ensure that we're really providing the right solutions that fit our community's needs, supporting, as you mentioned, through either corporate giving or just with our time.
Right. And I think that it means a lot in the community if someone maybe doesn't have that financial literacy, or just needs to go to a place that they know is inclusive and can, once you hear about the community needs, you can establish the various programs that support the community as a whole, which is super important. Can you give us an example of one of, like, maybe your most recent work with the community and what that resulted in?
Sure. One of the ones that really was, it's special and dear to me is working with the Young Voices of Rhode Island, which is a nonprofit organization where we had some youth come into the doors of BayCoast, a branch, and do mock interviews. They dressed up in business attire. They shook hands in the lobby. They sat down with the branch manager, and they had a one-on-one conversation and a full-on interview process. And then afterwards, we debriefed with them, and they were so appreciative of having that true experience, very early on versus, making mistakes beforehand. It was very positive, and they were so appreciative of the feedback. And I think the coaches and the teachers really appreciated that too.
Oh, yeah. One of someone in my family who I'm super close with is my niece, and she is 17 right now. And just in the past year, she's thinking about college interviews. She's thinking about job interviews. She's thinking about internships. And there wasn't a lot of that she could access. I don't think she knew about your program, or else we would have been there. But that's super helpful, I think.
That's a great opportunity to be able to interview before a real interview.
Yes.
It's a very anxiety-provoking situation.
Yeah. And just you're on the cutting edge of information, right? Like, what those companies are looking like. Like when I like role play with her, I'm going like from back 30 years with my experience. Right. Things might be a little bit different now. So I think that's super important. So now, with those roles in the community, in addition to that, I understand you do some financial literacy work in the community. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So it's important to know one of the quotes that Nick Christ actually says is education is the primary driver of the economy, your finances, your economic well-being. And the more you understand, the more you know about finance, the better you will be in the future.
Right.
And it'll pass on to your family, your children, your grandchildren, which is extremely important.
Yeah.
And so what most people probably know us for in the community is our Credit for Life.
Yeah.
So our Credit for Life is is a program where we go into the school and we do kind of a fair. We do it in conjunction with other banks in the area, and we talk to the students about their housing, transportation. So when they come into this, we call it a fair. When they come into the fair, they are pretending via a mobile app that they are 25-year-olds. They get to pick their career, and then they get a credit and they get a pay.
That's so cool.
And then they have to decide where they're going to live. You know, they have to decide if they have to have education. They have to decide on transportation. They have to decide on food. And in the meantime, the app will give them other incidental things that might happen. So they might win the lottery and get $100, and that gets deposited into their account. They also have to look at their retirement in that account. So it's pretty interesting, and because it's so gamified,
Right.
I think the schools and the students in the schools are really excited about having that, and they still get to have the conversations with the different people at the booths to talk about, you know, why did they choose this car instead of another car. And at the end, we look at their finances and we see if they need to go back, because if they went over budget, oh, you have to change something. What are you going to change? And so it's really exciting. That's one of the biggest things that the community knows us for.
Right. It sounds like your community relationships are really important, and that's a key, I would think, to helping with the financial health of the community and financial literacy and whatnot. And I know that you do a lot of your work not only in English but in Spanish and Portuguese, and I think that's wonderful. So, you know, you're trying to reach out to the community as it's represented in our area, which is not just English.
Absolutely. Right. So Helena and I both speak Spanish, and then we have people in the company that also speak Portuguese, amongst other languages that we speak.
Right.
I think that's so important too, because no matter what you're doing with your money, like if you're sitting there, you know, like my mother-in-law, for instance, Portuguese, doesn't speak any English. So you're sitting there next to her and you're translating. And money, like sometimes you don't catch all those nuances, like something's lost in that if you're not having that one-to-one conversation. And then I think a person just feels more secure if they can talk to someone directly about their hard-earned money.
Right.
So and especially this area that's Fall River's 60% Portuguese. It's
I don't know the percentage now, but there's a growing growing Spanish population also.
Yes.
So I mean, in my office, I see that things are changing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a very solid core of Portuguese-speaking patients, but I see more and more Spanish-speaking patients coming in.
Yeah.
So the community has evolved and has changed over the last few years.
I think the community also it comes from different backgrounds and right. different countries, and those countries do their finances very differently and look at banking very differently than what we do here in the United States.
How?
And so,
yeah, tell us a little bit about that. No, that's interesting to me.
Some of them don't have such a thing as credit cards or debit cards.
Right.
Some of them really don't trust the banks because a lot of the banks, unfortunately, have not helped them financially, and so because of those experiences, they might have had from other places and other countries. They come here and they don't understand.
Right.
And so if our focus is not just the children, but we also reach out to the communities, to nonprofit organizations, to see if there are any adults in the area that we can help teach, because these adults need to understand what I'd like to call the game of credit. Mm-hmm. You know, they need to understand credit, and they need to understand truly how to budget and how to save, and then pass that down to kids, their children. I don't know about you all, but my parents didn't know. My parents came from Puerto Rico, and they didn't know. They used what they earned that week, they spent that week. So they lived paycheck to paycheck. And had I had the opportunity to learn a little more, because I was their translator, and so I hadn't had the opportunity to learn about financial literacy until I was older and had to kind of figure stuff out on my own. So being able to help the children and hopefully get that back to the parents, and then help the parents as well understand the financial literacy and how you save and how you budget and what is retirement? How does that work? Because a lot of people from other countries don't know what retirement is. They just worked forever.
They work to survive, and they never really have a retirement.
Right.
It's interesting, yeah.
Do you see that on your side of the table too, like the differences and how you have to establish trust?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, what really sets us aside, BayCoast aside from the rest, again, with these two very important roles in the community and being community facing, is very important to be aware of our community's relationships with money. It's very different culturally. Money is very close to the heart. And if they don't trust you either by speaking the same language, but at least the person sitting in front of you being empathetic, patient, and understanding to the culture. And that's something we strive to do our best at BayCoast Bank. It's just really be mindful of the type of trainings we're also providing our employees. That way they're culturally aware and sensitive because different cultures manage money differently in their bank accounts. So as a bank, what may be a red flag may actually be something that is a norm to certain cultures. So just being really aware of that and how we convey certain messages and explain credit to what was mentioned earlier. Credit's very different in other countries. There you don't really understand at times what a FICO score is. So sometimes we really need to go to the basics with these customers and hold the hand a little bit tighter through the process. But it gives us an opportunity, again, to build that relationship and build that trust.
It's interesting how banking is different in different countries. We always think, because we're very kind of egocentric in the United States, we think everywhere is the same, but it's not. I mean, I spend a bit of time in Europe, and banking there is very different. And I'm sure when you go to South America, Central America, it's vastly different than it is even in Europe and here. So it's interesting. Well, you said something interesting, too, that I wanted to just comment on. So these programs, they don't just happen overnight. I mean, you need to really educate your staff to understand the importance of these issues. So I'm sure there's a lot of work involved in this.
Oh, yes.
I mean, part of it, I'm sure, is hiring the right people, but even then, you have to educate the people that you have. So there must be a whole process that you go through to make sure that your staff, your employees, have the education they need to support the community appropriately.
What's the process to know which populations to have the greatest need for something like this? Like, I'm just thinking, as when I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, this should be in like every school. It should be in women's shelters, with that very vulnerable population when they may not have managed money at all, and now they're out on their own and kind of scared and not knowing what to do. And then you made a very good point too, where as you get older, if you had known what you knew when you're at a certain age, if you knew that younger, like everything, that compound interest and all that stuff, I mean, that's a very powerful tool for financial stability. So can you just talk a little bit about how you really grow your programs, identify that need?
And basically what I was trying to get into too, and how you train the staff for some of this too.
Absolutely. So very high level, absolutely. You have to pick the best people you possibly can. Individuals that reflect the communities that we serve, one. And then two, doing really thorough research. And that's foot to pavement. Getting out there, immersing yourself in those communities, knocking on the doors, sitting down in the local businesses, having a cup of coffee with, a nonprofit organization. And it's just really building that relationship and getting to know them. That's what will set us aside the rest, building that trust and that good understanding, and then bringing that home. and bringing it to your other colleagues and the other individuals, either if it's BayCoast Mortgage or Plymouth Investments, and just saying, this is what we're seeing and what we're hearing in the community. And it goes so far with them because they're appreciating that you're showing up in their spaces. And then with that, we do bring in individuals. We work with local universities and sometimes bring in experts that will deliver a course. We have internal training as well. But we also have open dialogue and speak about a lot of these issues. And there's a lot of great opportunity within that to hear different perspectives from employees. And then collectively, we brainstorm on how we're going to, strategize going forward, either with educational trainings, seminars. It's not just, financial literacy. It's supporting with many different opportunities to have conversations either through seminars on financial independence, startup businesses. What are some of the resources and lending options we have at BayCoast? We even sometimes have commercial lenders come in and do a Q&A with, again, nonprofit organizations, women's shelters. And it's a great feeling to know that we're really showing up in the spaces and we're going above and beyond to truly understand what they need.
So what I'm hearing is that there's this whole culture that has developed, right? That's a big part of it. It's culture. So, and I get the sense it comes from the top down, but also the employees probably bring up ideas that filter up. It goes both ways. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And if I'm not correct, please tell me. That's what I'm hearing, though, I think. So
absolutely, it's when you have many seats at the table at many different levels within the organization, that's when individuals truly feel part of something, included. You're giving everyone an equitable opportunity to share, and then you're listening to diverse perspectives. So that's really how you're going to elevate, where we are in the organization and really truly meet the needs of the community. You got to get everyone involved.
When I was reviewing this material, I was thinking, my gosh, what kind of screamed out at me a little bit was just the way you're able to help people, and maybe everyone isn't aware of that, because if you're thinking, I really want to buy a house or I want to buy a car, and I know I'm not ready to do that and I'll never be ready, in quotes, like you can sit down with them and be like, you know what, we can get you there. It's A, B, C, D, and E maybe to get there, but you guys do that. You can lay out that plan. And I don't think there's a lot of awareness in the community that they can step through the doors and ask for help.
Right.
To get where they want to get.
And I think another important point is there's no cost to the help either. It's offered without.
And you're sitting with an expert who can really look at something that you may not understand, like you mentioned, FICO scores, and just like, hey, if you do these 3 steps or 4 steps, bingo, you're in the game.
Yeah, I know when we talked about mortgages way back when, that was one of the really interesting things that we learned was that, someone can go in and maybe they have poor credit, but they can learn, they have a pathway forward how to improve that, and they can understand what they need to do to get to their goal from A to B, which is, it's unique that you do that as an organization.
To help you understand, too, the platform that we've been given to do what we do. Helena and I are both part of the community engagement department. Okay. And so our job is to make sure that we're engaging in the community and making sure that we're offering what the needs of the community are.
Okay.
And because of that, our roles are kind of like the connectors. We make sure that what the community needs, we're providing. Because it's difficult when you're in a branch and you're trying to help people and you're helping all different kinds of people that come in, all different cultures, all different kinds of people, have different financial situations. It's difficult to find out exactly what the entire community might need.
Right.
What's missing in the community that we could provide, and so BayCoast has provided us this opportunity to work together in the same department, so that we can make sure that that we're servicing the community like we want to and we say we do.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just, again, when I was reading through the material, I'm like, everyone thinks that the bank is maybe the last stop you make when everything's all in a row, but it should be the first stop. because then you can find out about programs that might help you out along the way and just get to where you're going that much easier, because money can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. So maybe you can tell us a little bit specifically about some of the programs that you have, that you work with as a financial literacy officer, because there's more than one program, obviously.
Absolutely. I had mentioned the Credit for Life. That's one of them. Another one that we're going to be launching soon is called the Right Start program. And so the Right Start is an opportunity for children from 6 years old to 17-year-old to actually get their own account with a debit card.
Nice.
And of course, there are many restrictions on it.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And parents get to the parents get to put more restrictions, but the parents actually get to decide, what merchants can my children purchase products from.
Oh, how smart is that? So they don't have like something from a game site like $300 later.
Yes. They can also decide what specific amounts they can spend. So they can put limits on the amounts they spend. What I like the most about the program, of course, because I'm the financial literacy officer, is there is a financial literacy component and within this account. So as we can imagine, the account's online. So they can do everything via their phone. And the parents can check 24/7 on the account. But the students actually get to participate and try different financial literacy activities, and then we give them credit for it. So we'll deposit some funds in their account because they've completed certain financial literacy activities that are part of this account.
What are those activities?
They're different activities depending on the age. So you have the age 6 years old all the way to 17.
Okay.
So it's it could be a game that they have to do with their parents because they're 6 years old, to actually, understanding how to budget, like giving them a sample budget or something like that when they're older. So it's pretty interesting. I'm excited about the program, and it's going to be launching soon. We also offer to the schools in the area a program for K through 12 that we use a platform called Bonsai for, and this is a curriculum that teachers can actually use within their classroom. So, and then we support that with what we call our Money Smart program, where we actually go in person. So the teacher can begin having financial literacy conversations within the class with them through a financial literacy curriculum. And then we can come in and support that with games or activities, just to hear it. When you hear it from somebody else, then your teacher, sometimes you receive it differently. And the things you receive from you.
And once again, these are no-cost programs to anyone in the community, and you offer them in a variety of languages, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Which is great. And I think, as is many things in life, if you can learn these good habits when you're younger, it carries on into adulthood. It's like, exercising regularly, eating a healthy diet, whatever it may be. And this is another example of something so important that I don't think we really thought about, when we were kids, quite honestly, that much. But,
No, I didn't think about it at all.
you see so many adults that have so much difficulty with their financial situation. And
Well, yeah,
this would really help many people out, I would think.
Yeah, because you don't do it until you have to do it, and then you're like, I was 100% ignorant on money. I think when I went away to college, it was the first time I'm like, oh, like, what's the budget? Let me back
I
up.
was fortunate. My parents were very good about teaching us how to save and invest in that. But I think that's unique, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think probably
it is,
so too, because I grew up in a house that was paycheck to paycheck, and we just didn't have the discretionary funds to even begin knowing what to do.
Generationally, finance is a conversation that's different depending on the generation that you have. So what I'm trying to do, and Helena's trying to do, is make sure that we meet those people where they are that need assistance or just want more understanding. You can be in fine shape financially. You just want more understanding.
Right.
And we want to be able to meet you where you are so that hopefully we can change the trajectory of not only your life, but maybe generations to come.
Primacare is Southeastern New England's trusted leader in medical care. With offices in Fall River and surrounding communities, we're dedicated to your well-being. Our carefully selected team of more than 150 providers offers world-class primary and specialty medical care. Primacare doctors are supported by a skilled staff trained to deliver comprehensive radiology, imaging, and testing services. Primacare is large enough to take care of all your medical needs, but small enough to care for you personally. Primacare is by your side.
Got it.
Where do you start? You know, like your platform sounds very robust for like you have like the 6-year-olders versus a 17-year-olders. That's a very different teaching platform. So, like, can you just give us a glimpse of like what are you doing with a 6-year-old? And like a
Versus a
17-year-old ready
15
to
or a
like
17-year-old.
maybe leave the house for college or wherever or the workforce and earning like a healthy paycheck for the first time. Like
What do we do?
where
Yeah. Start maybe,
Where do you
and then I want to move into the adults too. But let's start with the young ones, a 6-year-old or 7 or 8-year-old.
6, 7, 8-year-olds. We have pages that they can color, they can cut out of dollar bills, or they can create their own dollar bills. And so the younger they are, the more they have to work with a parent, with their parents on this, so that we know that they're receiving that educational component, so they can color the money that they're making. They could talk about, we have the topics that they could talk about with the children about money and making their own dollars and play dollars and what it looks like and things like that. So that's what we do at the younger.
Pretty basic.
The younger age.
Just understanding what money is, really.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Understood.
Then you go to the teenage years, and the teenage years, now we're talking about even 14 and 15-year-olds. We're talking about, hey, you see your parents with a debit card. What does that mean? And
Right.
What do you think a budget is? Let's talk about when you earn money. Or when you start to earn money, or what are your goals, and setting smart goals, so that they begin to understand that this card that they see that their parents might use or guardians might use at merchants or in a store, somebody has to work to get money to have into that debit card. It doesn't just magically appear.
Do you see that in your specific focus? Like many people maybe aren't used to credit cards, or maybe they are. You said like sometimes the way they handle money, different populations, how they handle money can be very different. So I imagine not having that knowledge on how to use a credit card can really get some people in trouble. So how do you pair together to like handle just basic knowledge?
So
How do you work
you wanna
together?
Sure. I think we certainly complement each other. We have, different backgrounds in finance, where Evelyn may come in at the beginning phases of finance and work with the younger students and work their way up. And we're at a point to make some really, heavy financial decisions. They may come over to me, like an entrepreneur or a small business owner, someone who's ready to purchase that mortgage or, looking to make some investments. So with that, and again, with the credit debit card situation, yes, you do find that depending on the generation.
Yes.
Most people don't walk around with dollars in the pockets no more.
Right.
It's a swipe or a tap of the card.
Yes.
That's true.
And understanding how you manage that responsibly.
Yeah.
Just because you don't see it doesn't mean you're not going to feel it later.
Right.
Such a strong statement, because there's some financial gurus out there who are like, don't touch the plastic, rip them all up.
Yeah, it's hard
And
though.
then
It's unrealistic.
It's tough because of what you just said. Like you're not maybe feeling it in the moment, but with the knowledge behind you, it can register.
And getting back to what you had said about the older group. So I'm going to be teaching a financial literacy course that actually teaches this is what a check is. This is how you write a check. Right. This is how you use a check register. Now this is how you use your mobile app as a check register.
You link it.
Right. So you have to be able to gradually, but they have to know the origins, because it's hard. Just like a kid would start with the basic. Yep. What is a penny? What is a dime? What is a nickel? Adults also have to understand, especially now, how this originated, so that they can see how it should be used now.
Okay. Yeah, very good point, Evelyn, because, banking has evolved. And, and I go back to my future mother-in-law, like, she writes checks for everything.
Yes.
And I'm speaking to my fiance, I'm like, let's set her up with automatic pay. She likes to write her checks to her seeing something.
Yeah.
And, to Evelyn's point, we are definitely providing our customers with various ways for managing their finances. But you also respect and understand that some folks do like to write a check.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but we want to also enable our older clientele with those capabilities of being comfortable using a mobile app.
Right.
And we're aware of, different sites. So we're aware of fonts, sizes as well, where you can do that so it's more accessible and readable to you. And also languages, as you mentioned, in the state of Massachusetts, more specifically in this area, we have a lot of Portuguese, Cape Verdeans, Creole, Spanish individuals. So we do provide, items in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So
That's so great.
That's great.
Yeah.
That covers a big part of the population, obviously. So, yeah, very good. Can you tell us a little bit about the Right Start account?
Sure. That's the account that I just spoke about.
Oh, that was, okay.
Yes.
All right, I didn't catch
6 to 17.
I didn't catch the name of it. I'm sorry.
The Right Start.
Okay, the Right Start. So, all right, and that's so that's basically kids to 6 to 17, and then after that they would go to a regular account, I'm assuming.
Yes, their regular checking account.
Okay, but tell me just a little more about. I guess I understand a little bit about. I don't know if I completely understand the mechanics. I know you're trying to empower young adults and kids to understand how to use money in a responsible way. And you spoke a little bit about, but this is like an account they actually have real money in?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that, there's some things that you do that they have tasks that maybe they get a reward and get money put in their account, but they can also put money in their account too.
Absolutely.
So they're learning to save. Yes. And they're, I assume, learning about interest and all of that.
Yep.
Too at the same time.
Yes. That's part of the financial literacy component. When they're at an age where they can understand what interest is.
Okay.
So then that would be part of the component for those kids, especially if they're now using their own money.
Right.
And they're putting their own money in there. But for the younger ones, it's nice because now if they get a check, if they even get a check, they can learn how to deposit it mobily, because that's what they're going to.
So it's all tied in.
It's all tied in.
Okay, now I understand a little bit better.
If they don't, because there are people that are just transferring. They're using all these mobile transfer apps.
Right.
Well, they can get that sent to their account. So now we have to be able to show them, look at what your statement looks like.
Okay.
This person added this. So it's good for them to know. And it's different from when we were younger and your parents were teaching you how to finance,
right,
or how to maintain your finances. A lot of it was written out. And now, since everything's digitally, or a lot of things are digitally, it becomes a little more complicated, right, for parents to explain. So we're trying to help.
Yeah, we think that some parents can't even explain that, because it's hard, because we didn't grow up in that digital world, so to speak. We had a passbook, and
yes,
you walked in the bank and put $20 into your savings account, and it got put in there electronically, or not electronically, but it got kind of written in there in some.
They put it through a machine.
Some type format. Yeah, I might still have a few of those around, actually. But yeah, that's very hard for people who never really like the whole thing of scanning checks and all that, or doing them electronically. I just started doing that a couple of years ago. It's very easy. It's nice. Automatic payments, been doing that for a few years, but there is a learning curve to all that. So it goes both ways. So the kids are learning one thing. They're probably better at the electronic stuff, but they need to understand the history of where it all came from. And then the adults, if they've been doing banking, are probably, many of them, unless they've moved towards that, are probably more comfortable, older adults at least, with the way it used to be.
Yes.
So interesting.
And this helps connect.
They connect, okay.
This helps connect the both of those.
Interesting.
You had mentioned a little bit about small businesses. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and you work with the small businesses?
No, absolutely. One, you got to support them.
Yes.
Got to go up and show up and get in their spaces. And I try to do it as often as possible. I'm the big foodie.
I can see that. I can totally see that with you.
Just going and shaking hands, say hello, introduce yourself, and but always do your research beforehand. Yes, definitely got to know what the business is all about, and just sitting down and having a conversation and asking them, all about the business, how they got started, really getting to know who they are as a person, as a business.
Yes.
And what do they, enjoy about the work. And again, getting an understanding of what their needs are as business owners. And they also open up the doors for us to understand more about the community.
Yes.
Just think about it. Those mom and pop places,
Yes.
sometimes they don't have an opportunity to walk in our doors. So if we're able to show up in their spaces and come to them, and have conversations. And it just could be a question, a simple question. And that's what I really appreciate about my role. It's not sales driven. It's relationship driven.
It's great. Yeah.
That's such a great statement.
Yeah.
You can feel that too. You can feel there's a certain culture, at BayCoast, and you can feel that. You can feel like your community is first, and those relationships are so important. So when you're meeting the business owners, like, what do you have available? Like, can you talk a little bit about what you hear, like what you learn out in the community, and then how you turn that around into programs?
As I mentioned earlier, especially with the mom and pops, it's just most of them are family managed.
Yes.
Sometimes it's couples,
Yeah.
siblings. And they don't always have the opportunity to walk in our doors and have, they have tons of questions and needs, but they don't always have the time to come in through our doors. And we do have very flexible hours, even open on weekends. We also have, a great a call center where customers will call in. There's nothing like a face-to-face conversation. So I think something that we provide is, again, showing up in their spaces. And that's what I hear often. It's just that we don't have the time to come to you. So it's great that you're coming to us.
That must be appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. And then asking them questions. What's working for you? What's not? What do you really appreciate about us as a bank? What are some opportunities that we have? It's great to hear all the good, but also I want to know what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, there's always
What are some of the challenges? Like, what are some of the top challenges?
What do they tell you are some of the difficulties that the people you've interacted with, businesses you've interacted, have encountered? I'd be interested to know that.
I think it's just learning it all at times. They just want to be able to manage the business, very solid, as well as the finances. Right. And I tell them sometimes you need to, delegate finances to one person in the organization. I know it's important to be involved, your hands in it, but that's what they're saying. It's just doing it all. And I said, you may not be able to. Or you may need to dedicate a day for finances. And what I hear more often than not is trust. Them finding a financial institution or a banker that they can trust, that they can really peel back the layers of who they are as an individual, as a business owner, and just say, this is my truth, this is where I'm at, and finding just a person that they could connect with. But again, it goes back to us as bankers, is going into those communities, into their spaces, and having those conversations. Building that trust will open up the doors to better communication where they'll share.
What's your educational background? Just out of curiosity.
I went to school for pre-med. Didn't work out too well. So long and short, it didn't. I didn't like it. I hated it. But finance. International business and finance.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
All right.
And I absolutely love it. It just took a bite of me and I didn't let go.
That's great. That's great.
And Evelyn, your educational background?
I have an MBA.
Nice, nice.
It's always been business.
Yeah.
Although a while ago, I was more into, and this is probably why this connects with me so much. I was more into the academic side of it in Rhode Island, working for a school, and so
Yeah, I can see that's kind of a nice fit.
yes, so this fits really, really well.
Oh my God.
So I always like to summarize things, so I hope you'll forgive me if I do that, but I think it's good for the audience. So what I'm hearing is that the bank has a particular culture, and part of that culture is really what your job is involved with, and your job too. And there's this whole mission to educate the community, which I think is really wonderful and unique. But as far as the financial literacy programs, I was looking over this, and we talked about this, but I just want to make sure that people understand how unique this is. So the Right Start program is for kids age 6 to 17. And basically this account empowers kids to learn how to spend responsibly, right? So they get a free BayCoast Bank debit card, and a unique feature of this is they have this Learn to Earn reward program where kids can get cash into their account for completing, fun financial educational activities, which is, I think, incredibly unique. But then there's parental controls to help the kids, be accountable for how they spend their money. And these can include spending limits and, basically I would think where they spend their money also, correct? Which I think is a really, really unique program, teaching kids at a young age this. And then parents can have transaction alerts also. So it's a really robust program, it sounds like. And then you have also the program that you talked about through the local schools, which is designed for K through, I guess, 8 to 12 students. And that has some modules or engaging modules where they also are taught about personal finance, et cetera, how to save for college, how to maintain a budget, things that I never learned in school, which is fabulous. Saving for college, how to use a credit card responsibly, and all these things are free, basically. And then there's the Credit for Life program, too. So did we touch on that one a little bit? That was the first one. So that is basically where you're dealing more with high school students. You're dealing with high school students, and you're asking them how do you imagine your life as a 25-year-old adult, right? And talk about how they can get to those goals. Talk about credit scores, things of that nature, right?
Right. It's actually a mobile app.
It's a mobile app.
They actually get to pick a career that they want, and they get a salary, and they get a credit.
Okay.
And then they have to walk through booths and live the life of a 25-year-old, being whatever profession they chose to be in.
Well, I wanted to summarize it because there's a lot here. I mean, there's just a lot of information, and I want our audience to kind of understand basically some of the programs. And I know you went over them, but it's always good to kind of talk about it and summarize it. So,
can I ask one more question before you continue your summarization?
No, I'm done summarizing.
Okay.
I'm done.
Done with your summary. That would have been a lot easier to say. The workforce is so challenging these days, like even getting people into an organization and then retention, right? So I can imagine, we talked about a lot of the work you do externally with the community, but you had started off talking about your work with your internal customers, your employees. Your retention rates must reflect that. Can you just?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's great to bring in, new employees. It's just wonderful. But equally important is to retain the existing ones, and really pouring into them and understanding what's important to them. Not when they started maybe, 10 years ago, but what's also important to them today. And just keeping that alive in ways that we do that is through employee resource groups, the Women's Empowerment Group, the Young Professional Group.
Did you hear that? The one that
The Voice of the Associates, where we're providing platforms for employees to come together and in many different ways through either sip and says, where, we're having a beverage and sharing an idea, to young professional groups sitting down and having a senior leader as a mentor and sharing some best practices, or just have
So
a
important.
coach. It's so important. You know, we want to make sure that we keep the bucket full, and that means retention is equally important as, you know, bringing in new employees. So reinvesting into them, and again, giving them the opportunity to have a seat at the table and a voice.
That's beautifully
Well, it's a
said.
great culture. I mean, it just sounds.
Well, it's so important because there's so many times you can walk into an organization, you know, you might go into your little cubby and that's it for the day, you know, like you're bringing everyone together and you're creating common grounds and common goals, and you're building those relationships internally, which maybe we should name this podcast "Relationship Building with BayCoast Bank."
Yeah, I like
I mean, that's good. We could certainly do that.
And if I could share,
Did you hear that, Taylor?
share a story about myself, I received one day a card. It was on top of my desk. I had my name on it, and I had just graduated a program, a pretty intense program. And I shared that with HR. And Mr. Chris wrote me a beautiful message in a card. And I'm a card girl. I'm one of those girls, like, on a gift, the card is the best thing ever. Forget about everything else, the card and the bow. And it just made me sit in my seat for a moment and just really I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to graduate a program that the bank supported. And then for someone, the CEO, to write a handwritten note in a card and take the time to do that and place on top of my desk as congratulations.
Super meaningful.
That was awesome. So those are the things that I feel make employees want to stay.
Right.
They're seen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, good culture comes from good leadership, and it all filters down, and then it goes back the other way. You need people up top to listen, as you mentioned, also. So it sounds like you have that, which is great. It's unique, and it's wonderful.
I'm going to steal your word now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, ladies, if you were going to summarize, you know, the opportunities that BayCoast can offer, how you're working together to improve our communities, so why don't you take it away? And then how would we tell our audience to reach out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Sure.
We appreciate feedback. We use platforms to share feedback, come in through the doors and share feedback, positive and as well as any opportunities we have. We want to know. What you'll receive at BayCoast is an opportunity to truly build a relationship with the bank, a partnership. We really care about who you are, not only today, but where you want to go tomorrow. We want to be part of that journey with you. We just want that opportunity, but we want to do it right.
Nice.
And the way to do it right is really engaging in the community and it be an equitable exchange of information where we can then, you know, really deliver upon what we need to do.
Beautiful.
How do you follow that?
I don't know. It's a little bit tough, but I have total faith in you.
Can I say
You got it, Evelyn. You got it.
The bank is truly committed to helping the community, and it's what we strive to do, is provide the services that the community needs, and Helena and I are just one aspect of a bigger, what I call, world that BayCoast has to offer, and we invite people in. And we try to make ourselves available to the community as well, because not everyone, we talked about culture, might feel the need or be ambitious enough or even want to, because we have those generations of people just want to do everything online,
Right.
right? And so we will provide all of these various services for those people in our communities in order to meet them where they are.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I think it's probably important just to mention to our audience that the bank is one piece of kind of a larger organization, right? There's Plymouth Investing, which we've had them on before too, which is more, I guess, the
With Patrick, yeah.
investment arm. And there's also an insurance
Yep.
part to the bank.
Along with insurance, and it was Carol
So,
Simmons. Yeah.
I mean, they have
Plymouth
a
Investment.
lot of the bases covered, if not all, which is great. So if someone does, if they're interested in learning more about the bank and the programs, they could, of course, go to the website, I would think,
Yep.
which we mentioned earlier, BayCoast.bank. they could call, right?
Absolutely. And
And
they'll get a human being.
they'll get a human being, and that
love
number is
that.
508-678-7641. And that's an important point because a lot of people just hate when they get these automatic tellers that really don't provide any information. So that's wonderful that you have actual real people answering the phone. So lots of ways that they can get access to the bank and its services.
And different languages.
In different languages.
Or we'll come to you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's even better. Yeah. Right. So that's a good question. If someone speaks only Spanish and they call the bank, how does that work?
So if they call the bank in the contact center, we do have Spanish-speaking, we
Okay.
have Portuguese-speaking people there as well.
Okay.
So there will be somebody there that can help them.
Okay. So there's always going to be someone available, it sounds like, if they call in to answer their questions and lead them in the direction they need to go. That's great. That's good.
And we're mindful when we're placing individuals to employees, mindful of demographic areas in the communities to ensure that we have individuals that not only look but speak the languages of the community. And we also have a group of individuals, I guess you could say a language group. In the event that someone does have a need or needs a translator, we know who to tap on.
Nice.
Are you able to use translators for, let's say, other languages that maybe aren't as commonly used in our community, but there are people who are, say, speak Cambodian or Vietnamese or whatever it may be. Can you help those folks out too?
We do have employees that do speak those languages as well.
Yeah.
We do have a few. And we do our absolute best to ensure that we are able to assist them with those needs and provide the resources as well.
Right. Okay, that's great to know too. Excellent. Very good. Wow, this was great. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about these programs, which are really fabulous. And I hope our audience enjoyed it too.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening that will want to access this. Any last words? I shouldn't say it that way, right? Sounds so
My
fine.
word, I know, especially being a doctor. Do you have any last words?
Any last words? Anything you want to say just to, as we complete our program here?
Give us an opportunity. Come in through our doors, have a conversation, give us a call. We would love to connect.
That's
Nice.
great.
And I'm the ultimate instructor. So as an instructor, I always ask, what did you learn this
Nice.
session?
Yes.
That's great.
So that's my question to you.
Ooh.
I learned a lot. I didn't really know much about these programs, so now I know about the programs that you offer. I understand. I always knew the bank had a tremendous culture, so I knew that. But it was nice to hear from your perspective as a DEI officer, what that really is all about, and your perspective also as an educator, really what it's all about. So that was good for me.
I think it just reinforced what I already know about BayCoast as deeply caring for their community and having that relationship centric to everything that they do. I wasn't aware that your position existed. So that was very intriguing to me to learn about, and where our workforce is so challenging. Kudos to you for building that platform for them. And I can talk about literacy, financial literacy forever and a day. So I am a strong advocate that they need to have programs like this in our schools, because everything that you learn in high school, money will follow you for the rest of your life. It's central to everything that we do. So if we can have that should just be part. Are you listening to me, high schools out there? That should be part of our curriculum.
Okay.
I'm a very strong proponent of that. So I wish you luck in getting in every single school.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on to the program.
Thank you.
I mean, I thought it was very educational. I learned a lot about what the bank's doing, and I think that those listening I think there'll be a lot that will be interested in using your programs. So, and I want to thank all of you out there for listening to our show. And if you'd like to become a sponsor, please contact us at 774-319-4230. Special thanks to Ron Gamache for our intro music, Primacare, your trusted medical providers in southeastern New England, and the BioSkills of Northeast for producing our show, and available to produce your show by calling 774-301-8811, and they do a great job. BayCoast Bank, just right for all of your financial needs. Visit baycoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. And Duncan Hearing Healthcare you can trust, with sites in Fall River, Dartmouth, Falmouth, and Centerville. For more information, visit their website, duncanhearing.com. Once again, thank you everyone out there for listening to our show, and we'll see you back in a couple of weeks.